This is Wade, and you are with Wade in Wade World. This is the first stream, so the lighting and everything else will be further refined later. But this is a stream that Wade is doing solely to get information directly to you in a faster and more concise way. And what Wade does now is translate the news for you, which is basically propaganda, which pushes a certain narrative. And what Wade does is it strips the narrative and just tells you what they're trying to tell you or lie to you about. Before we go forward, again, Wade did this, but Charlie Kirk needs to be addressed, and may he rest in peace and condolences to his family. But anybody who says, whether they're high IQ or low IQ, who says that this wasn't planned is wrong. There are too many coincidences, and the probabilities of multiple coincidences do not point to a random act of violence. Number one, he rejected an offer of $150 million from the usual suspects. Number two, he became critical of the usual suspects. Number three, Jewish man who immediately created a diversion to allow a shooter on the roof to escape. And this same Jewish man was also involved in a 9/11. So that's 1 in 2 billion, I think somebody did the numbers, that the same Jewish guy would be involved in 9/11 as well as this. Number four, the shooter on the roof. Number five, Patsy that they have found, who changed clothes twice, used her old Mauser, had enough time to immediately take out the rifle barrel and then reattach it and leave it in the woods. Number six, the conversation on a Jewish owned app, Discord, which seems absolutely ridiculous and made up. Charlie Kirk was publicly executed, and it was a message. And he was a moderate. He wasn't anywhere near the level of response that the enemies of not Americans but mankind deserve. Moving on, again, Wade doesn't really care how many people watch it, if any watch it or not, because this is just a way to get this information out to you faster and in a more concise and efficient way. So we're going to go around the world in the news until Wade decides it's enough for today. And we're going to translate it for you. And because in this new world that we live in, a, it's not a brave new world, it's a black new world. The center of the United nations and this world and the news cycle is the United States. So we are going to start with translating the news from the United States. And as human beings, we show how quickly we move on. Charlie Kirk was assassinated, publicly executed only a few days ago, and people are already moving on. And 2 days before, Irina was a girl from Ukraine who was murdered in cold blood on a train by a black man, surrounded by other black people who didn't do anything to help her as she bled out in front of them. And the latest news is that this guy has been released and by a judge, by a lefty judge, saying he's incompetent to stand trial. You know, in earlier ancient healthy societies, what happened to incompetent people? They used to be executed before their incompetence became deadly to those who are competent. We forget so quickly. Anyway, moving on, we will go to the US news. And this is just general, not targeted. So the first headline is Trump state visit live. King praises the UK. Trump is visiting the UK. The King of the UK praises the president's commitment to ending wars and blah, 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 blah. The United Kingdom's monarchy was destroyed in 1649 when King Charles I was beheaded by a revolution funded by Dutch Jewish bankers using Oliver Cromwell. How do we know what the priorities of these revolutions are? First of all, they're funded by Jews. Secondly, immediately after the revolutions, the ethnic population of the country where the revolution took place are massacred in vast numbers, whether it's the British Jewish Revolution, the French Jewish Revolution, or the Russian Jewish Revolution, right? So that bloodline was ended. We'll go into more details about this topic, the expulsion of the Jewish people from the UK in 1290 under King Edward I. And this expulsion was reversed by Oliver Cromwell after beheading Charles I. Why? If it's a British Revolution, why do you care so much about Jewish people who have been expelled for coin clipping, destroying the currency, right? So, whoever sits on the throne now, as far as you can see, for the last 2 or 3 generations, have overseen the destruction of the English, Welsh, Scot, and Northern Irish people, which make up the United Kingdom. The king is the best of a people who looks after his own people. He has ties to them by blood and race. But this king and his mother, and looks like his son, don't really do anything for their people. They are hell bent on replacing them by Africans and South Asians and all sorts of random people, lower IQ from around the world. So, as far as we can understand, this is a puppet. So let's translate this. Trump state visit to the UK live. The puppet king of the UK praises the puppet president's commitment. And the reason Wade calls him a puppet president is because he is not doing things that are 100% pro America. He's done more things that are pro Israel than anybody else. He may not be a puppet 100%, but there are a lot of strings attached to him, especially, again, the coincidences of the people who attempted to take his life 2 times, majorly, and 4 other times, which was thwarted. And it seems the usual suspects. Anyway, so this puppet king is making some empty noises with his mouth while his country is genocided by the usual suspects, importing vast numbers of Muslims and Africans and other lower IQ people. Next headline. After fatal crash, Sikh truck drivers in the US fear backlash. This is such a BBC, it's such a propaganda arm. After fatal crash, Sikh truck drivers in the US fear backlash. So this is basically putting Sikh truck drivers as some victims and just saying after fatal crash. What fatal crash? Did the fatal crash just fall out of the sky? Did the fatal crash just miraculously appear out of nowhere? No. See, this is propaganda, and the BBC is a perfect example of it. It's not a fatal crash. This was the incompetence of a Sikh truck driver in the United States who took a U turn where he wasn't supposed to intentionally, which resulted in a car full of 3 people ramming into the truck and killing all 3 of those passengers who were also Haitian. The people who murdered all the white people in their country, then pretended to be lords and nobles by dressing up in the murdered white people's clothes and basically devolved into eating cats and dogs and each other. Lowest IQ Africans. But the point is, this wasn't a fatal crash after fatal crash, just a random fatal crash that happened out of nowhere. Nobody was involved. We don't know who it was, but the poor Sikhs. No, this is propaganda. They want you to completely ignore who was responsible for the crash, who it killed, and just focus on the importing more of the people, the kind of people responsible for the crash. It's like saying after fight, invaders fear backlash, where the fight was the invader coming into your nation and massacring your men, women, and children. See how I changed it? After fatal fight, invaders fear backlash. So that's how you translate the news. Oh, the BBC. Seriously, if the British are so easily subverted, and it doesn't really matter if you say it's Jewish people who are subverting it, which it is, but if you're so susceptible to subversion, you need to have a long, hard look at your own people, your own blood, your own genetics, and find out why it is. Number three, he lied to us. CBS News staffers say new owner David Ellison just can't be trusted. David Ellison is Jewish. Saying a Jewish guy just can't be trusted is like saying is water wet. I'm not even going to go into details. All right. This is like a lot of these headlines are very dramatic, very effeminate. They are geared towards generating an emotion within you. So if you are a man who has high testosterone and an IQ above 100, even 120, 130, it just seems irritating and pointless. Like, who are you writing this for? And then you understand it's propaganda. So 80% of people in the world, including white people, don't lack an internal monologue. So they're basically NPCs in video games. So whatever propaganda you insert into their brain, like the meme, it just goes in. And that propaganda sticks if it's emotional. So anyway, he lied to us. Tough, tough today's. US China trade talks as it happened. Scott Besant says framework of deal reached on TikTok. This is hilarious. So this is another queero hired by the Trump admin. They love their Jews, queeros, and women. They really dislike America first white men. And if they are America first, they have to be Israel firsters, even firsters. So the whole thing with TikTok is TikTok was owned by, obviously developed and owned by Chinese people, and the US was like, oh my God, TikTok is owned by a foreign government and foreign people, Chinese people, and they're spreading propaganda. Not really propaganda. They spread the truth about what's going on in Israel and Gaza and with Palestinians. So the US government has forced TikTok to be sold to a bunch of Jewish people. And now there's no problem. Not white Americans, but a bunch of Jews. That's the trade talk. Oh my God, a foreign government owns TikTok, China. Oh my God, a foreign government, Israelis, almost all Jews everywhere are Israelis. That is the actual policy. Now it's not a problem though when that foreign government is Israel. It's just how the U.S. rolls. Alrighty, United Airlines says problems at Newark Airport have eased greatly. Yeah, probably because you stopped hiring low IQ blacks, black females, and other highly illiterate, illegal aliens, Indians, and other people who just shouldn't be there because you're scared of losing your job because of the Trump administration's somewhat pro America policies. So again, but you see the headline of the New York Times doesn't tell you what happened. It just gives you this very neutral. United Airlines says problems at Newark Airport have eased greatly. So here's the pattern. Here's a pattern for you to understand. When they want to hide their schemes that will harm you or get you killed, they make the headline sound very boring, very normal, so you don't pay attention to it. But when they want to push a certain narrative, they will make that headline more emotional. For example, if the Trump administration wasn't in power right now and the Newark airport was having multiple plane crashes and thousands of people dying, they would say United Airlines reaffirms its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion and says the problems at Newark airport are due to white supremacy and racism, which would make no sense until you understand that again, it is propaganda. It is hooked into emotions and it is designed to hook into emotions. If you want a long term memory to form or long term personality to form, you hook it via emotions. So, some it's like the ship is sinking, but somebody's and with multiple major holes, but somebody's plugged like one hole in like a tiny part of the ship with a finger and be like, look, we plugged this hole. Look, it's amazing. Look at this hole I just plugged, and the ship is still sinking because there are like 1,000 other holes. The absolute state. Russia is quietly churning out fake content posing as US news. Hey man, as long as the United States is a Jewish occupied government, you can just invert everything that the media says. So they're saying Russia is quietly churning out fake content posing as US news. That basically means the US is quietly churning out fake content posing as Russian news, which they have been doing, and which took a massive hit once US aid was defunded. Every accusation is an admission of guilt. Every single accusation is an admission of guilt with these people and the countries that they control. And if you don't know the countries that these 0.2% of the world's population control, they are all the Anglo countries, all the English speaking countries, the United States, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, Ireland, almost the whole of the EU, minus Hungary, maybe minus Poland, minus Belarus, minus Russia. So there is one thing that you may not like the things that are said in the Talmud, calling everybody cattle. But the fact remains that if 0.2% of a population of people can exert insane amounts of influence in the world, leading to two major world wars and most of the destroying most of the monarchies around the world since 1649. That does lend some weight to the fact that the people who are born to rule are always going to be a minority, but they're always going to be gifted in certain ways of ruling and amassing power. That is something that you cannot argue with. Anyway, we're going to move on to two more, and I think that should be enough. So we're going to move on to America's best friend who stabs America in the back since its founding, Israel News. Three Bedouin brothers shot in southern Israel after arms deal goes wrong. Let's translate this into the fact that the guy who was running ISIS turned out to be a Jew, and the guy running Black Lives Matter was also very obviously a Jew. So when Jews say the three Bedouin brothers were shot, I don't trust it. It probably means that they either killed some people that they wanted to kill and say that they're arms dealer, or it was three Jews who basically killed each other, and now they're just saying, oh, they were Bedouins and not Jews. All right, Smotrich says Israel working with Trump on real estate bonanza in Gaza Strip. So I think this is the foreign minister of Israel. He's saying we're going to work on, because Trump is a merchant. Merchants have never saved civilizations because their god is money. And the people who are at the top of the hierarchy of money praising, money worshipping are Jewish people. So Trump is always going to lose to them when it comes to this. And they basically have ethnically cleansed Gaza. And now they're like, it's all cool. We're just going to put a couple of casinos there and hotels there. And come in, man. You can make it Trump Tower. We're still going to own everything about it. And let's forget about all the little babies that we killed. Let's focus on the shiny new things we can build. They can say it nicely, they can, dress it up as much as they want, but this is the fact of the matter. Now, I'm going to take a different stance from most people here and say that throughout history, we have not had a chance, as much as human beings we can remember, of actually having a recorded version of what goes on in an ethnic genocide. Like Jewish Bolsheviks killed 60, 70 million Russian Christians. We had no cameras to document it, right? Dresden in Germany was bombed, and there were entire armies trying to rape German women by the millions, and the women killed themselves. We had no cameras to do that. This is the first genocide that we have actually seen, and seeing little babies with their legs blown off really, really makes you understand what kind of person you are. Whoever those babies might grow up to be, at least let them have the chance. So, Israel has not done that. People are righteously angry. And now they're trying to just, let's move along, it's all done, and let's make some hotels on that. Think about that what you will. Nothing about these people surprises Wade anymore. The latest Israeli military presses on with its new ground offensive on Gaza City. What new ground offensive? They don't, these Gazans, they don't even have a military. It's just a smattering of like women and children left, and men who do not want to quit their homeland. And they've been aerial bombed, artillery bombed, and now your ground offensive basically means you're sending in the army to shoot them in their houses and go block by block to shoot them in the houses, right? There is no offensive when there is no defense. And there's no defense because Israel just basically outclassed them in every single way, whether it was militarily, financially, logistically, intelligence wise, and whatnot. Hell, Israel completely allowed a 6 hour attack to happen. The best the best intelligence agency in the world that can shoot guys like Charlie Kirk and have exploding pages by flooding the entire market of Lebanon with explosive devices, and they just let this happen for 6 hours in a country which is basically 45 minutes long and wide, not a huge country. So this is just the final step of the ethnic cleansing that they're going to do. They're just dressing it up as a ground offensive. You're ethnically cleansing people, man. These kind of they get boring because they just lie all the time and everybody knows they're lying. But that's also a good indication of when you have enough power, words mean nothing. You guys can protest all you want, and oh my god, it's horrible, but it means nothing. Doesn't mean anything. Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. UN report finds. Oh wow, you finally found what everybody's been able to see online for years now. Spain to boycott Eurovision 2026 if Israel competes. Oh wow, what a huge impact this will have. You won't be sending a weird tranny to sing in Eurovision, right? Israel says it will defund film awards after Palestinian win. Like you have to give them props for being absolute extremists. They don't even just want the people gone. They want all semblance of their identity and acts erased. I mean, if you want to talk about extermination, and all the Jewish fantasies about the Germans trying to exterminate them. You have to understand these fantasies come from the Jewish mind, and the Jewish mind is very, very good and very extreme when it comes to extermination. Doesn't really work, but they get pretty close to getting a lot of it done. So anyway, we'll close off Israel because it's just a horror show of lies, lies, and more lies. And let's go to the UK, the United Kingdom. Trump to meet Starmer after hailing second UK state visit as highest honor at bank. He's such a bullshitter, man. Queer Starmer is a homosexual. He's a queero married to a Jewess. So obviously he's controlled in multiple ways. Jewish people love queers like Keir Starmer and Macron and his tranny wife because these people are biologically and mentally defective and the easiest to blackmail. Because if you start off being biologically basically wrong, you're very easy to subvert. And Jews have like a PhD in it because I'm pretty sure they don't allow these things to get out. But as a percentage of the race, they have the highest percentage of homosexuals and trannies than any other race in the world. Bet on it. Bet any amount of money on it. So, anyways, Trump is that's he doesn't have the guts to just straight up diplomacy, diplomacy. You know who is diplomacy is for weak men. Weak man. You are at the head of the most powerful military in the world. You don't need to do all this. You can just call him to his face, like, hey, queero, I know you're a queer. You know, stop helping the Jews genocide all the British people, or I'm going to do X, Y, Z. He's like, oh, it's the highest honor. A merchant. Merchants have never saved civilizations. They've got Jew brain, money brain. All right, Donald Trump, second state. We can completely ignore that. King and Trump hail US UK special. What does it even mean? You hail the special relationship. What special relationship? The special relationship where the US watches Jews destroy the UK by unlimited Islamic immigration, where hundreds and thousands of British young girls are raped and the people are put in jail. Only white people, British people, are put in jail for trying to criticize their own genocide. Wow, what a great relationship you have. What relationship from the UK side? Always trying to stymie any American efforts to have put America first, trying to where British Jews help American Jews do the same thing they're doing in the UK to the US, funneling African Muslims like Somalians into whitest states like Minnesota, funneling Muslims and making Muslim mayors of cities like Dearborn, Michigan, the hometown of Henry Ford, the man who invented the motor car and also exposed Jewish lies and plans, which we can see are happening in front of us. What special relationship? Their words are so much bullshit, so much nonsense. It's just the propaganda is this is for brain dead people. And I'm guessing most people are brain dead if they need to pump this much. There's nothing else in the brain because God forbid if they don't put propaganda in the brain and they might start going to church or they might start praising God and getting back on like an orderly and balanced way of life, right? All right. The UK inflation rate stays at 3.8%, but food costs continue to rise steeply. If the food is becoming more expensive, if your money can't buy you food which you require to live, then how the hell is inflation at the same rate? Because they don't count food in inflation, or they'll count food that nobody eats in inflation. Say, oh look, that inflation didn't rise. You can't eat and you're starving, but inflation didn't rise. By the way, if you guys didn't know, inflation was the reason Jews have been kicked out of 109, 110 countries because inflation is basically robbing the money of its purchasing power and allowing the rulers to borrow now. And the repayment is done by your taxes and your children and grandchildren's taxes. And if they can't repay it, then you just repay by giving away your land, your your actual land of your country and your natural resources to these people. The global policy of inflation was looked at as a horror, and it used to be punished by execution. Now we are living in a Jewish system, so it's basically like, oh, inflation. It's so hilarious. The propaganda is so funny. And the propaganda also backfires when they encounter high IQ, high testosterone men, not girls, men, because we see exactly the lies that are being pushed. Thousands of protesters march in London as King Charles hosts US President at Windsor. Which protesters? Are they for Trump? Are they against Trump? Are you talking about the protesters that were protesting against the rape of British girls and the police covering it up and the hundreds and thousands of Muslims that are being imported by Jewish people into the UK to replace the British people? That protest, because that protest is probably pro Trump. Again, this language, most people you'll never understand that they paint things in a way where you super exhausted after being forced to work all day, scrounging for some food and lying exhausted in bed, just asking to be told what things are. This is when they get you because they can color your perception of reality by their phrasing and by the emotions that they can elicit or put in your brain by their words. Let's see. Let's do one more and then move on from the United Kingdom. Changing dynamics, profit boost, president hails priceless and eternal. Yeah, it's all a bunch of nonsense. All right, Wade will finish off with Russia. And Russia is definitely special right now in history because the Jewish Bolsheviks basically destroyed Russia for 100 years. They murdered the Tsar and his entire family. Every single person who killed the Tsar and his family in Ipatiev house was a Jew. It was a blood sacrifice. They killed his infant, they killed his baby, they killed his young son, they killed his teenage daughter, they killed him and his wife, they killed the whole bloody family, and there was no need to do that. After that, Leon Trotsky, Beria, Enrique Yakoda, all Jewish, passed the first laws that they passed were anti-Semitism will result in death. Not like, oh, it's a glorious Russian revolution. Let's get everybody a house and free food and universal basic income. No, they passed laws against criticizing Jews because like 90% to 95% of the Bolshevik party was Jews. And the Chekas and Gulags and other people. And governors of Kazakhstan was a Jew who murdered about 40% of ethnic Kazakh. Remember Borat, the Jewish actor who made Borat making fun of Kazakhstan? Well, there's a reason they hate the Jews. So the Bolsheviks also then went on to murder after the Great Russian Revolution 70 million Russian Christians. And after destroying this country for 100 years, they destroyed it. They were destroying it in the 90s by looting it and raping it. There are many Jewish billionaires, Berezovsky, Khodorovsky, and this and that. And that was basically put on absolute stop in 2000s when the current president of Russia came to power, and he's like, "Yo, enough of your nonsense, cut it out. If you need to get the hell out of Russian politics. You make your money and you stay in your lane. And if you don't stay in your lane, I'm gonna kill you." So they hate Russia for like multitude of reasons. Russia was also the last European Christian nation to fight off against the Jewish central banks, the last monarchy to actually fight. That's why they were murdered so brutally, because all the other monarchies had already fallen to the Jews. The Russians were the last remaining ones, and they fought for the longest time. And even after killing 70 million Russians, destroying Russia for 100 years, raping it for another 10, 20 years after the fall of the Soviet Union, again, they have a problem with Russia. Russians just won't quit. Russian white people just won't quit. They'll just keep going and sticking a finger in the eye of the Jewish plan to basically kill all non-Jewish white people, right? So let's see. Putin proclaims his successors, Russia Ukraine war veterans. All right. Has he really proclaimed his successors? In remarks to Russia's parliamentary faction leader on Thursday, Vladimir Putin described veterans of the war in Ukraine as our successors, endorsing. Oh, that's smart, actually. But again, the way that this is framed is like, wow, he's going to continue his regime via successors. And why not? If you look at what Israel has been doing, it was founded by relentlessly terrorizing, like basically Jews invented terrorism. They started killing civilians in the 1930s and 40s until they got the British to give them Israel. And then they have basically they've killed multiple leaders of states, including JFK. Let's not kid ourselves. And then you'd be like, has any Israeli leader ever been killed? Yes, actually, one prime minister of Israel was killed. And you know who killed it? Israelis, because he wanted a two-state solution. So he was like, all right, let's give the Palestinians the state. They killed their own leader. So they practice extreme levels of racism and ethnocentrism and just blackmail, bribery. But don't you dare do that. Don't you go in. Don't you dare do that. I mean, that's probably why they hate Aryans, because Aryans had like a much more sensible master race system where they broke down the master race into wise men, warriors, merchants, and then laborers. And Jews have like just one, like we're the chosen one. So we're also the merchants and laborers and warriors and blah, blah, blah. I think that's why they hate the Aryans, because Aryan system is just superior and they know it. You can't say you're the chosen one and then end up looking like a hook nosed bitch from like the Wicked Witch of the West or something. Like every meme, like if you look evil, if there's something wrong in the face, it hates the human race. That's the best way to go about it. So anyway, moving on. Russia using Nazi era weapons as arsenal runs thin in Ukraine war. This is hilarious. These Jewish people have been telling everybody around the world that since 2022, Russia has just been constantly running out of weapons. That's the reason they're basically been winning consistently and have taken over more than 20% of the Ukraine. Not even, and they're not even using their massive weapons right now. They're not even using their advanced weaponry. But they keep constantly running out of weapons and still winning. They must be formidable then. So they're using Nazi era weapons. It's hilarious. You know what a lot of these countries do when they go to war is also they basically if you're actually going to go to war or you're going to attack anyone, whether you're the United States or Europe, if you have old weapons that have become less effective, it's just better to get rid of them. So they probably also do the same thing, but they blame Russia for doing it. If Russia is just like, yeah, we're winning anyway. Oh, we've got some stuff that's pretty useless. We've outdeveloped it, so let's use it. And they're like, oh my God, they're using Nazi era weapons. Again, the propaganda is emotional. Russia, Ukraine news. EU Commission head informs Trump of new plan to halt Russian energy imports. Basically, the only way the EU, which is a Jewish organization of unelected people, can halt anything to do with Russia is by bombing it or destroying it. They can't do anything financially. They can't do anything on the military level. They can't do anything intelligence wise. So all of these threats of what they'll be doing to Russia, or what can be done to Russia, are just empty words to gin up support for basically the right wing side of white genocide, which is basically have Europeans kill each other, and the left wing part of white genocide is import a billion Africans and Indians and Middle Eastern Muslims to basically kill whoever is remaining at home and rape their women and children and just basically the right wing white genocide is send them to die in Jewish wars. The left wing is import invaders into their homelands while the men die in Jewish wars. Poland neutralizes drone over government buildings. Man, the Polish people just need to relax. They need to think about their history with Russia because the Poles are a mix of Slavs and Germans. How do you know that? Because the Polish language makes no sense if you read it in English. It's a bloody Slavic language that they use English to write in. You know, if you write any foreign language, Arabic or Russian or Chinese in English, it will look retarded. You'll be like, what the hell? Why are there so many L's here? Why are there so many R's here? It's like, because it's the wrong alphabet for the language. The alphabet can't convey the sounds. That's what Polish is. They need to get over whatever differences that they have with their Slav brothers and then just move on and grow up and unite with the people who are racially, ethnically, culturally similar to them. I was in Poland. Most Polish people have best friends who are Ukrainians, Russians, and Belarusians. Whoop-de fucking what a surprise. Slavics being friends with Slavs. And we're going to end with one more. Russia subjecting abducted Ukrainian children to forced militarization at 210 facilities. All right, so the Ukraine is currently ruled by Jews because Zelensky is a Jew, the prime minister is the Jew, the foreign minister is a Jew, most of the generals and defense ministers are Jews. They're basically, Ukraine is Ukraine right now. And what do Jews do? They accuse you of doing to them what they have been doing to you. So this can be very, very easily translated. And when they say Russia is subjecting abducted Ukrainian children to forced militarization, you can just reverse it to get the truth. The Ukraine is subjecting abducted Russian children to forced militarization. That's it. That's it. If you want a simple recipe, if you're too tired, you don't have enough time, or you're just not smart enough to analyze everything, then there's a simple rule for you, which Wade has stated multiple times. Jews lie, their media lies. So if you want the truth, just invert what they are saying. If they're saying you are being bombed by your neighbor and the Jews are trying to help you, you're being bombed by the Jews and your neighbors are trying to help you. If they say like this food is good and that food is poison, guarantee the food that is poison that they say is poison is good and the food that they say is good is poison. It's very simple. Do that and you won't go wrong. This has been the first stream from Wade. Until next time, keep it cool, keep it smart, and enjoy.